We're joined today by Dave Sunday, Republican candidate for Pennsylvania Attorney General. Why are you seeking this office?
I believe very simply that if our community is not safe, nothing else matters. I have seen the other side of crime as an elected district attorney and as a career prosecutor. I'm a father, I'm a husband, and through the course of my career as a career prosecutor, I have seen not only the harm that can come from crime, but I've seen the amazing things that can happen when communities come together, when you work together as a team, and you do things to decrease crime. And so very simply, I cannot be more sincere about my feelings with regard to the critical nature of decreasing crime. That's why I'm running. I mean, I can tell you right now, my son's in 4th grade, and I am very concerned about the world that he has to grow up in. I mean, when I was a kid, you could make some mistakes in life, and you might have, I'll say, I'm sure none of your viewers have had this happen, but you could have a hangover, right? In today's world, and I have seen this for a fact, a mistake could equal death. With drugs, with fentanyl, we have challenges with regard to social media and the internet, things that we didn't have to deal with when we were kids. You look at the amount of child predators that are doing everything they can to get to our children, through every possible avenue, from gaming systems to everything. I have seen the nonstop attacks on our senior citizens, on our aging population, through fraud, through people that are doing everything they can to take their money. And I just feel very strongly that we need an experienced prosecutor in this role. We need someone who knows what it takes and has done it before. And so that's why I'm running for Attorney General.
Now, you just referenced your current role as York County
Yes.
District Attorney. Can you talk a little bit more about how that experience would translate to the role of Attorney General?
Absolutely. So by statute, the Attorney General is Pennsylvania's chief law enforcement officer. And a lot of people don't realize this, but the Attorney General doesn't have a courtroom. The Attorney General and the Attorney General's prosecutors work in all the courtrooms throughout Pennsylvania. It's the same set of laws in the same courtrooms with the same judges. And so as the elected district attorney in York, I'm on the executive board of the District Attorneys Association. I'm chair of education and training for the DA's Association. And so I have worked and collaborated with the AG's office throughout the course of my career. And so there's no doubt in my mind that puts me in a position of strength with regard to running that office, with regard to fighting the challenges that will absolutely hit that office. And so as a chief law enforcement officer for a county, running to be the chief law enforcement officer for Pennsylvania, I think it's an absolutely natural fit.
Now, you also served in the U.S. Navy, participating in Operation Desert Strike in the Persian Gulf. What did you take from your military experience?
Oh, my God. So by way of background, you know, when I was a kid, unlike a lot of people, I guess, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. No idea. I was, I'm not going to say a knucklehead, but pretty close. And so when I turned 18, I decided to join the military. And I just went and I joined the Navy. And I was an enlisted guy, so I was an E1, which is literally the lowest rank that exists in the military. So I was on a ship. I was deployed all throughout the world. I was in the Persian Gulf. I was in Central and South America, just everywhere you can imagine. And I was on a ship with 240 other sailors. So it was a small ship. It was called a guided missile frigate. And so during the course of my time in the military, I worked every day with people from all walks of life, from all throughout the United States of America. And we came together with a common mission and common goals. And what I took from the Navy not only was, discipline, it was also understanding that you can work really hard together as a team with people from all walks of life. And when you have a common goal, when you have a common mission, magic happens. I've seen it happen under some of the most stressful, difficult circumstances that you can find yourself in on a Navy ship. And I never forgot it. And the lessons that I learned in the military have stuck with me throughout the entire course of my adult life, working as a team, collaborating with other people, and also knowing that you can achieve things. You have to believe in yourself, and amazing things can happen. So, I mean, the military, one of the best decisions that I ever made in my life was, other than marrying my wife, of course, was joining the Navy. It changed my whole life.
If you were elected, what would your top priority be?
So right off the bat, if our communities aren't safe, nothing else matters, period. If we are not safe as families, as communities, as just as a society, then economic development, schools, you name it, everything suffers. And so I have seen firsthand the magic that happens when you do work together as a team to get this done. So in the city of York, for example, from 2023 to 2024, 2022 to 23, we've decreased our homicide rate by 75%. And we've also decreased gang gun violence by 80%. And notice I say we did that collectively together. And what happens when you can do that is you then start to see just positive things happening in the community around us. And so I know how critical it is for public safety that we have a safe community. And so my top priority right off the bat is going to be public safety, not just gang violence, organized crime. Right now in Pennsylvania, 15 citizens are dying every single day from fentanyl, every day. And as a prosecutor in a county directly north of Baltimore, unfortunately, addiction and the opioid epidemic have been just a critical part of what I've done throughout the entirety of my career. You know, it's destroying families, it's putting children in positions of just, you know, unbelievably sad harm potentially. And so to that point, we're going to attack the fentanyl epidemic head on. I look at our senior citizens in Pennsylvania, and like I said, I think we're the second highest state in the country for the amount of senior citizens that live here. And so just like we've done in York, where we created an elder abuse task force, where we work with the area on aging and we work with the financial institutions and our law enforcement, we're going to do the same thing in the Attorney General's office and do everything we can to decrease the amount of fraud happening for senior citizens. Right now, the average amount of money stolen from a senior citizen during fraud is around $38,000. And so I know if someone stole $38,000 from me, there'd be problems, let alone our aging population who are on, you know, most of them are on fixed income and things of that nature. And so I'm going to attack seniors. I'm going to attack fraud against seniors head on as well.
I'd like to back up a little bit and go
Sure.
back to something you just mentioned during your tenure as a district
Sure.
attorney in York County.
Yes.
You lowered crime rates, murder rates, and you also on your website note that York's recidivism
Yes.
rates have
Yes.
lowered as well. Could you talk a little bit about some specific policies
Absolutely.
that helped make that happen, and how could
Absolutely.
you apply that statewide?
Absolutely. So to begin with, a lot of people don't recognize that 95% of everyone that goes to prison, they're coming back out into society. 95%. And so when we look at crime overall, obviously we have to hold people accountable, and my philosophy is called accountability and redemption. You have to hold people accountable. And so you have people committing crimes, you prosecute them, you hold them accountable. At the same time, people don't recognize the fact, like I said, 95% of people that go to jail, they're coming back. And so we have an entire group of right now, I think it's probably close to 70,000 people that will come back out of prison into the community. And so we have to do everything we can so that those future neighbors, future colleagues, citizens and friends, so that they do not commit more crimes. And so what we've done is, you know, I don't know if we've mentioned this yet or not, but when I got home from the Navy, I worked at UPS for 8 years. And so I did my undergrad during the day and I worked at UPS at night. And then I worked at UPS during the day while I went to law school at night. And, you know, I had the privilege in that job of working with people, again, from all walks of life. I know there were people that were formerly incarcerated, that were on probation or parole or maybe work release. And what I discovered was, you know, when you have someone who starts working and they have a career job, they take care of their family, they can pay their taxes, they pay their restitution to victims. And the data is overwhelming that when someone is working in a career job, the odds of them committing more crime goes down drastically. And so we started this entire reentry coalition where we work to help people so that when they come out of prison, guess what they do? They get jobs. We help them to do job interviews. We help connect them with employers. And that is one of the main absolutely fantastic initiatives that can be done. I'm so proud of our community for doing this, because when you look, our overall crime rate has gone down 41% from the 10-year high. And one of the main initiatives in place that has helped that are all of our initiatives in helping people to get jobs and careers after they come out of prison. I mean, think about just the positive impact of that, not just for that person by themselves, but for our society and for because, we have so many open jobs. People are looking to hire employees. We have people coming out of prison, and then when they start working, it keeps families together, okay? We also set up initiatives where, as they're coming out of prison, because we have a huge mental health crisis in this country and in Pennsylvania, but we help them making sure that they have mental health services. So once they come home from being incarcerated, then they have the support network in place so that they don't commit more crimes. I mean, I can tell you right now, if someone broke into my house, and I hope it never happens, I would want them prosecuted. But at the same time, I would rather no one ever break into my house. And I think that's the philosophy that we have to have. And I know that's my philosophy. And so as Attorney General, these principles and specific initiatives that we've seen amazing outcomes from, these are things that we can take all throughout Pennsylvania. When you look across Pennsylvania and you look at all the elected district attorneys, okay, I work with them almost daily. And so I have those relationships in place where we can provide expertise. We can show the initiatives to the DAs in their local communities. We can help them with the expertise that it takes to set these initiatives up. But more importantly, we can show them that there are positive outcomes, that this stuff really works. Because I can tell you right now, citizens, they want outcomes, okay? People have had enough of tweets and social media posts. People want elected officials that are going to work hard every day, get the job done, and leave politics at the door.
I can get you to talk a little bit about your views on Pennsylvania gun laws and perhaps address specifically things like universal background checks, red flag laws.
Sure. So to begin with, when we look at gun violence, okay, and so in the city of York, we have had tremendous challenges with regard to gun violence over the years. And what we did to attack gun violence was as follows. We came together as a community. And when I say we, I mean the DA, the police, the local, our entire faith-based community, all of our local elected officials, our schools, and we all came together because, we don't have the luxury of saying, what if in the future this can happen or all these changes. We want to go ahead right now and say, how do we make our community safer? And so what we did was we decided, first and foremost, number one, to enforce the laws that are on the books. Number one, that was the first thing we did. And the second part of it is we started this group violence initiative, okay? And this is really important. This initiative is a data-driven, evidence-based initiative that has had tremendous outcomes across the country. And what it does is it brings the community together with law enforcement. Everybody comes together. And they do two things. Number one, they focus on accountability. And number two, we focus on redemption. And so what we do is we actually bring in gang members. And we sit them down, we talk to them, and we explain to them, listen, here's the deal. If you continue to commit crimes, if you continue to commit crimes of violence, we are all going to come together and we are going to investigate and we are going to prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law. We are going to incarcerate you in accordance with the law, and that is absolutely what's going to happen. At the same time, should you decide that this is no longer the life you want to live, and you want other opportunities, and you want to leave gangs, and you want to get a job, whatever that might be, then we're here to help you with that as well. But you need to understand that this is your choice to make, and the outcome, what we're going to do is based on your decisions. And we started this around probably 8 or 9 years ago. And every year it's gotten stronger and stronger to the point where you bring in, what are called credible messengers that go into the community. These are people from the community that know the people in the community and know the parents and know the kids and know everybody. And they go in there and they try to keep retaliatory violence from happening in the first place. So I tell you this simply because, through this effort, that's how we lowered our gang gun violence by 80%. And it's not just data coming from police and prosecutors. Our hospital, okay, York Hospital, where gunshot victims would go to, they've already put out that those numbers have decreased by almost half. So 50% fewer people are even going to the hospital with gunshot wounds. There's nothing we can do in society with these unbelievably difficult and complex questions that provide instant gratification. That's not the way this works. The way you turn it around and the way we did it was relentlessly, year after year, focusing on data-driven, evidence-based practices that we knew could provide outcomes. And so what we have done in York, this model, this can be done anywhere. And we've proven it can be done. And so with regard to gun violence, we've lowered it by 80% through this method. And that's what I'm going to continue to do.
Earlier this year, the Commonwealth Court upheld Act 40, which would allow the Attorney General's office to appoint a special prosecutor to oversee crime taking place on SEPTA, the Southeastern Pennsylvania Mass Transit System. If elected, would you appoint the special prosecutor?
So the special prosecutor has already been appointed. And so there is a special prosecutor in place. So the current Attorney General, Michelle Henry, made that appointment. I will support that prosecutor. I will do what I can to ensure that prosecutor has the resources and the tools to do the job, to keep the citizens that ride SEPTA transit, citizens that are in Philadelphia and surrounding areas, to keep them safe. And so I will absolutely support that position. I'll do what I can to make sure that it's successful and to make sure that that the actions taken by the SEPTA prosecutor are such that will ultimately create a safer environment for people in Philadelphia.
Can you talk a little bit about the opioid epidemic in Pennsylvania and what you could do to address that?
Yep. So right off the bat, it's critical that you have to attack the supply. So we've done this. I'm going in a year like 12 of the opioid epidemic in York County. So you have to attack the supply to begin with. So you have to go after drug traffickers. You have to go after the people that are profiting off of distributing this poison all throughout our communities. But at the same time, we have to do what we can to decrease the demand. And so what we have done, and the way that we've lowered the overdose death rate by 26% in York, whereas it's gone up 15% around the rest of the Commonwealth, is through initiatives to decrease access to treatment. And so we started actually a nonprofit, the York Opioid Collaborative, where we work with parents who've lost their children, where we work with schools, we work with the faith-based community, with police, with treatment providers, and everybody in between. And we do what we can to work on decreasing stigma for people with addiction. We do what we can to, like I said, increase access to treatment. We do what we can to help people to go into long-term recovery so that support is there, not just for the people in long-term recovery, but their families and their children. I have seen the horrific pain and suffering that comes from this epidemic. I mean, I can tell you right now that there's very few pains that I've seen in the course of my profession, like the pain of a parent who's slowly losing their child to addiction, because I've watched it happen, and where the addiction starts and then it gets worse and then it gets worse and then it gets worse to the point where you have parents who every day just pray that their child comes home that day. They don't know where their child is at. They don't know what's going to happen. They're dreading that phone call in the middle of the night, that knock on the door. And I have lived that world, and it's absolutely horrific. And when you look at the Attorney General, this is what motivates me to do this. This is why I'm doing this, because I'm going to say the room for error when I was a kid was greater, and in today's world, it's so slim. I mean, children are at a place, and teenagers, where they go to a party, they start, and the level of addiction is so much higher. I mean, we did everything we could. I think we were the second county in Pennsylvania to make sure that to have Narcan in the hands of police, and thousands of lives have been saved as a result of that. What we're finding now is that the drugs are so strong that Narcan doesn't always work, to the point where you have to repetitively keep, giving the Narcan, and sometimes it doesn't work. This is very, very serious, and it's destabilized families. It's just really just a horrific state of affairs. So to answer your question very simply, the way that we've done it and the way that has to be done, you've got to aggressively attack the traffickers, which is a must. You have to do that. I was a special assistant United States attorney for 4 years, and we had a large case against a gang called the Latin Kings that were trafficking heroin into York. And so we successfully arrested and indicted 100 Latin Kings or affiliates. And that's how you do it. And you have to have the experience as Attorney General to know what it's like to run those long-term criminal investigations. And that's what we've done. But like I said, on the other hand, we must do everything we can to get people treatment. We have to. And what I've learned over the years is that, not every drug dealer is the same. So you have like drug traffickers on this end, you have users on this end, and then you have a lot of people in the middle who might be selling just enough to get high. And so what do we do with that group? And so what we have done with that group is you provide them, you have to hold them accountable. There's things like treatment courts that I'm a huge fan of, that we support. And there's different initiatives because, what you want to do is you want to give someone the opportunity to be held accountable, and at the same time put them in a position where they can go to treatment and hopefully go into recovery. So this is an unbelievably complex situation. And again, it's one of those issues that's outside of the political cycle. And what I mean by that is you can't say, I'm going to fix the opioid epidemic and then tweet about it that day. This takes the political courage to dive into an issue that may not be solved until long after you're gone. And I'm beyond committed to this. And that's something that I feel very strongly about.
If elected, how would you protect the legitimacy of the vote if it's challenged?
So to begin with, I think that as Attorney General, the number one thing I can do to protect democracy is to enforce the laws as written in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. That is the number one thing I can do. I've done it as district attorney. I've done it before I was elected district attorney as a career prosecutor in the office. And what I can tell you right now is the way that you protect democracy is to enforce the laws that are on the books, that have been put there by the legislature, that were signed into law by the governor. And that's my commitment to the citizens of Pennsylvania, is that I will enforce the laws that are on the books in the Commonwealth.
If elected, would you follow state law that allows for women to have access to abortion services up to 23 weeks of pregnancy?
Oh, absolutely. The reality is in Pennsylvania, whenever issues come up with regard to the law, you have to view it. There's two things you have to look at. Number one, what is the law? And number two, what is the role of the Attorney General? So to begin with, in Pennsylvania, the law states that abortion is legal through the 23rd week of pregnancy. And then after that, there are exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. That law is the current law in Pennsylvania, and it has been the law in Pennsylvania for over 40 years. So I think I might have been 6 when that law was passed. And so to that point, as Attorney General, I've taken an oath. Well, as the district attorney, I've taken an oath. And God willing, I'm Attorney General, I take the same oath to follow the law as written in Pennsylvania. And so very simply, just like every other law in the books, I will absolutely follow the law in Pennsylvania, period.
How do you see the Attorney General's role in balancing Pennsylvania's environmental resources as well as supporting our energy industry?
Sure. Yeah, to begin with, I grew up fishing. I grew up playing in streams, in Stony Creek up in Dauphin Borough, for anyone who knows where that's at. But I'm a huge, I think we have to keep our environment clean. We have to respect the beauty of our environment. At the same time, we have to respect industry, and we have to respect the different businesses that are occurring with regard to energy. And so I think it goes back to, very simply, there needs to be an even playing field for everybody. And the way you do that, and again, I know this as being the DA, is by following the law. what we can't have is an activist attorney general. You just can't have that. Because when you have an activist attorney general, then the citizens don't know whether or not their behavior is violating the law. So if you have a prosecutor who picks and chooses what they do based on their feelings, based on just how they wake up that morning, then citizens don't know what the expectations are. Businesses don't know what the expectations are. Nobody does. Labor doesn't know what the expectations are. And so that's why, circling back to a question a little bit earlier, the way that I protect democracy is by absolutely following the law as it is written in Pennsylvania. And so to your point, there's a lot of competing interests that that I balance every day as a district attorney. I mean, we've probably had maybe close to, 40,000 cases have been prosecuted in my office since getting elected. And what I can tell you is that, when you have balancing interests, what's expected of the person who you've hired to enforce the law is that they follow the law in Pennsylvania. And so I think very simply that there's a lot of controversies that exist that once you sit down with the parties and you explain to them what the law is, and people recognize that the expectations are that they follow the law, then I think that actually makes it easier to work through a lot of these different issues.
Why would you like Pennsylvanians to elect you as Attorney General?
Because I am a career prosecutor, I'm a father, I'm a husband, and I know how critical it is that our community is safe. If we are not safe, I've heard it from Erie to Wayne County to West Philly. Everyone I talk to, hands down, without question, says, I want to live in a safe community. I want my children to be safe. I want my families to be safe. I want to be left alone. I want to be able to just live my life and just have a career. And I am the candidate to make that happen. I'm a career prosecutor. I have spent the vast majority of my career in a courtroom, staring at juries, asking them to return verdicts. I mean, I have prosecuted everything from drug cases to domestic violence cases, domestic homicides, murders of children, gang homicides, elder abuse cases, and I've done it in a courtroom. And that is absolutely important because when you make decisions as a leader, you have to understand where those decisions could ultimately go. And when you run a law office, those decisions can lead to a courtroom. And if you have never had that experience working in a courtroom, trying those cases, there's no way for you to ever understand the ramifications of your actions. So I would like the citizens of Pennsylvania to vote for me because my commitment to them is that I will do everything in my power to keep them safe.
Dave Sunday is the Republican candidate for Pennsylvania Attorney General. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.